Hi, my name's Tom DeMolin, and in this video I want to go over just kind of doing a free-form sketch in Illustrator and then using live paint to color it in. This kind of conforms with exercise 1 where you're just doing a kind of a life drawing. For my sketch I have this little funny guy inside a hand sanitizer holder. I just think it's interesting, and you might as well pick something that's interesting to sketch. One thing that I think is really important while you're sketching is to pick an angle that really shows off the 3D quality of whatever it is you're sketching. Many times when I'm looking at student sketchbooks, they tend to draw things head on or from the side. You don't get a lot of information that way. Instead, if you draw it at a 3/4 view, and I don't know if I can't see a video playback, so I'm guessing this works okay. 3/4 view just means that you can see the front, the side, and either the top or the bottom of the piece. A 3/4 view is great because it really gives you a sense of dimension for particular design. Or I'm sorry, for particular object. So anyway, I'm going to just set this down and start drawing. The other thing that I'm using, I'm using a Wacom Tablet or a Wacom Tablet, whatever the pronunciation is. I've used them for 19 years and I never get the pronunciation right. In any case, I like these just because it's easier to draw, a little freeform. I'm not recommending them. I don't mean it to be a commercial. But that said, professionally I've worked with one for 19 years and they're wonderful. So if you find that you're doing lots of drawing or you're doing lots of photo retouching, anything that requires pressure or a lot of drawing, consider one. It takes some getting used to, but we have a number in the department. You could come in, check it out, work in the lab for a while, see if it's for you. Okay, so anyway, here we go. I've opened up an Illustrator document, and inside there it's just a standard print document. What I'm going to work with, let's see, I'm going to set this up. I just want to make sure that we've got a workable layer. We do. I'm going to get out the pencil tool for this. Now, you can try all kinds of different things. For this, I'm just going to try to get a nice little rough sketch. So I'm not going to try to use a tool that will make me tighten up. I think that's a common mistake, is to kind of work in Illustrator and think that you have to get everything done in the first pass. Do a rough pass, get the feel for what the object is. You'll start to understand the object a little bit better, especially when you're drawing, and then come back and clean it up. So I'm going to use the pencil tool. I'm going to have a fill of none, and a stroke, just the default stroke is fine. And in the pencil options, I'm just double clicking there. I'm going to come in and choose edit selected paths. I'm going to turn that off so that as I come close to a path that I've already drawn, I don't accidentally re-edit it. I don't want to change the paths I've drawn. So I'm going to just draw this with an eye towards having it kind of roughed in. Some people, sometimes when you're drawing, it's nice to kind of set up some proportions. So I just make some marks here, try to get the initial angles down, get some idea of width. So right now I'm just looking at that bottle and I'm just kind of trying to figure out how it looks in space. There's all kinds of different ways that you can go about drawing stuff. I think it's just whatever works for you. I think the key is just to kind of get the idea of the proportions ahead of time. Alright, so I've kind of laid out just a few of these. The shoes are going to be down here. There's another shoe over here. Okay. So just some initial hash marks. Now I'm going to come in and rough that down. And I think what I'm going to do is put that on a separate layer so that I can kind of look at these hash marks. But if I want to get rid of them, they won't be completely buried inside of my other drawing. So all I did was inside the layer palette, make a new layer, and then I lock down the existing layer. And this is a great method to work if you think you're going to discard a layer or you just don't want to screw it up. Okay, so now in this one I'm going to just kind of scribble in. And again, the thing I'm making is just a bottle. And the whimsy of it is that it's kind of sitting in that funny little container, or it's on that stand. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out what its proportions are right now. And it's okay if the proportions are wrong initially. As I'm putting in the volume here, I'm thinking that the volume is just a little different. So looks like it's a little bit taller than I initially thought it was. Anyway, so you can kind of see I'm getting the feel here. Now, I'm intentionally not using like the line tool or tools where I could refine the shape. That definitely is in Illustrator's bag. I mean, to do technical drawings, it definitely is available. I mean, that said, I'm kind of going for this rough look. That's by design. I can feel myself already starting to tighten up as I'm doing this illustration. It's a hard call. The more you draw, the more comfortable you become, the more used to your own style, and the more confident you'll get with your drawing. If you're not feeling confident, that's all right. That's normal. It's like trying to do a signature with your left hand or whatever your non-dominant hand is. Give yourself the time to be uncomfortable. But seriously, I think drawing is a hard skill for adults to pick up because you're so used to doing things competently that you start to do something like drawing and you don't feel very competent at it, and your inclination is to get out of there. So hang in there, and there's a good reason behind doing this. Now while I'm drawing, you'll notice that there's some common things that are happening here. I'm trying to get lines that are receding, that are going back this way, to kind of head towards an equal vanishing point. That's what they call it in perspective. You can see there's the vanishing point. If you draw two lines and they don't converge, or worse, they start to get further apart, you know you're not doing it right. Now, Illustrator has a nice perspective tool, but for what we're trying to do here, it's going to be, well, first of all, it's going to be overkill, and second of all, it kind of gets away from the sense of this being a piece that's drawn by hand. Illustrator has a reputation every once in a while as being too mechanical. Stuff that's done in Illustrator looks too mechanical. You can get around that just by approaching the design with a little roughness. It's okay for it to have a rough quality. This thumb has a little bit of foreshortening, meaning that it's coming straight at us. It's a little hard to understand its depth because of that, but it's a great way of creating a little bit of perspective. If you ever look at comic books are wonderful at foreshortening. Alright, so we've got our bottle in here, and it actually looks decent. Couple of key things we're looking for. Why don't I get out the line tool here, and I'm going to just lay down a couple of lines and see how these are going. I don't really care if it's perfect. I just want to make sure that it seems to be diminishing. When you're checking perspective, that's the key thing you want to look for. Are the lines kind of going into space the right way? And those are all diminishing, so that's good. I'm going to reverse this and go the other way. That's looking okay. Sometimes what will happen though is your vanishing point over here will be higher than your vanishing point over here. That's a common error that occurs too. Just from looking at this, just from the feel of it, it seems like the top of this lid is a little too high. So I'm going to come in here and let's just clean that up. Think of it this way. It's funny that these don't clean up that way. One thing that you want to think of when you're drawing in perspective, oh, that's that hash mark, sorry. When you're drawing in perspective, you want to be able to have things that are below the horizon line. See, all these guys are diminishing below the horizon line, or I'm sorry, they're down below the horizon line, and they're diminishing up as they go towards the horizon line. As these get closer to the horizon line, let's say the horizon line's up here somewhere, an object would actually be completely flat. If this disk, as I drew it, this disk, as it would get higher, would actually get flatter until at some point it would reach the horizon line and it would be completely flat. So that's a hard call. It's hard to kind of figure that out. Now what I could do is take these lines and actually do the same kind of diminishing work on the head here, and I would just make sure that these lines were diminishing into space as well. But then that oval needs to be drawn properly. You have to kind of, you have to make sure it's no longer sketched, that you're actually going for technical drawing. But you can see here, this line isn't diminishing. So I think that's part of the issue. So I'm going to go ahead and get, well, let me show you this trick. This is kind of a neat trick. Maybe I want to set this line up so it will diminish, so I'll go ahead and realign that guide. Now, I want to see these guides, but I don't want them to print, so I'm going to highlight all the guides. I'm holding down Shift so I can select multiple guides. And right now they're just lines. If you go under View and you slide down to Guides and just choose Make Guides, these lines all become guides. So if I click away, notice they're all blue line now. Now I'm going to go ahead and lock the guides as well in case they aren't. Yeah, lock. Without them locked, I can go in and adjust them and keep fiddling with them, but right now I want to lock them down. Okay, now I can zoom in here. Let's take a look what's happening up here. I think it's just an issue of me just being kind of sloppy on the top. Let's come in and just delete some of this stuff. And as I redraw, I'll just kind of try to stay within that smaller parameter. There we go. And you'll see here in a minute, I'm going to come back and deal with these guys a little more thoroughly. But for right now, we've got a good illustration happening with all of these items. I think it looks pretty sound. I'm going to go ahead and just save it to the desktop. By the way, if you're using CS4 and you're working in the labs, make sure that you save back to CS4 so you can open it up at home. Alright, now I think one other thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer with the hash marks. And I'm going to unlock the guides because I want to be able to move the guides with me. I'm going to just slide the whole object up in space. So I just pressed Command A and then held down the Command key. Remember, Command gets you your last arrow that you've used, and that brings up, my black arrow, and I was able to move all those guys. Now I can hide this again, if I can remember where. There we go. Lock them down. Good. All right. So next step here, once you have this cleaned up, next step is to actually make this into a live paint object. Here's the deal with live paint is you want to be careful with live paint. If you're going to use it in a design, keep in mind that all the lines kind of flatten down into this one space. Illustrator has two ways with dealing with shapes. You can work with them conventionally. So if I come in here and I draw a shape and I fill it with a color, let's just come in and choose a color to fill it with. You'll notice it fills from the one open point to the other open point. If I make a closed shape, then it obviously fills the closed shape. Now, when people in the past have worked with Illustrator, a lot of times they found this frustrating because they're trying to draw kind of like what I've drawn here. And you draw a bunch of shapes and you make this overall shape and you go to fill it. And I'll choose them all and you go to fill it green and it fills this way because it fills each one from its open point to its end point. So Adobe came out with this concept of live paint a while back, and basically what live paint does is it looks at intersections. Wherever lines crisscross, then you can fill in where you've kind of determined a fill area. So if we look at this overall shape is pretty closed, so I should be able to fill that with a color. So we'll try it out. I'm going to press Command A, so everything's selected. Go under Object, and I need to choose Live Paint. Make. When I do that, notice that the little cursors, or the little dots that were there, have these little asterisks by them now. And in fact, in the layer palette, when you open it up, it'll say Live Paint Group. So those are some indicators that you're dealing with a live paint object. If you have a whole bunch of shapes and they're on different layers and you select them and turn them into a live paint object, they'll all move to one layer and it'll become a live paint group. Okay, so I want to work in here with the object. First thing I want to do is, let's see, maybe we can erase some of these. Yeah, just get rid of some of these intersections here. Clean this up a little bit. And of course you'd probably want to come in and that thumb is looking mighty big. So what do you do if you've made this into a live paint object and now you have to do an edit? Well, I'm going to go in doesn't look that much differently. Go in. Now that object needs to be merged with my live paint object. So I selected that object, held down Shift, selected the live paint group, go into Object, down to Live Paint, and I'm going to merge them. Okay. So now, if we get out, well, let's do a little bit more cleanup here first. Just want to get rid of some of this other junk that's in here. So the tools are working much more like you would expect in an illustration program, rather than kind of a technical drawing program, which is where Adobe was going when Illustrator first came out. It's very much a technical program in its infancy, because that's what people needed. They needed to be able to create technical, sharp things. It's a benefit of the computer. But as those drawings kind of happened, then obviously there's another market for illustration that was also helpful for Adobe to come into. So obviously this is the result. So I'm going to just do a couple of other cleanups here. Let's get these guys on top. And again, you could choose how much you wanted to refine this overall drawing. Now, I've made some extra additions here, and in looking at the original object, it looks like it has a little bit of a bevel to its design here, right along the edges. And let's see if I need to erase some. It's the strangest thing why this is not erasing. I wonder, do it now? There it goes. Alright, so we get that cleaned up. Good. Alright, now let's start painting it. So under the new tool here, Shape Builder, if you click and hold, there's a live paint bucket. Oops, and I'm running into my cord. Just a second. Live paint bucket. You'll notice as I come over areas, they'll either highlight or they won't. When they don't highlight, it just means that the shape isn't closed yet. There's quite a bit here that aren't highlighting. So I'm going to just press Command A. I forgot to merge those extra shapes. So by sketching all that extra stuff, I'm going to go in, Object, Live Paint, Merge. See if that affects things a little bit. It affects them a little. There's still some work that needs to be done. One thing that I can do is go under Object to Live Paint, choose Gap Options. Let's get a preview, so I'll highlight this. And instead of it showing in red, since everything's showing in red, why don't we choose blue? Now, you'll notice there's some small gaps here that are being closed, but the bigger ones are left open. So let's choose medium gaps. Still not much different. Large gaps. Okay, large gaps closed up, so now this front will close. And it looks like some of these other areas will close too. So I'll go ahead and say OK and get out the live paint bucket. Notice, yeah, now I can fill in a color here. So that's kind of how you work. I'm going to adjust this. This adds just a little bit of texture to it. Let's get rid of that guy. By the way, if you use your wide arrow and you hold down Option, you get the group selection arrow. when I do that, I can select part of this group. Obviously, the entire group is the live paint group. I don't want to delete the whole group. I just want to delete that object. Okay, so do that. Come back. Oh, now I need to merge those extra objects. So just object, live paint, merge. Okay, and you can see it's now giving me a little bit more control. Okay, the other thing that we could do with live paint is use the live paint selection tool. This is kind of a handy tool too. Remember I was mentioning intersections. So wherever there's an intersection, live paint actually will highlight the object. So I've clicked on it with the selection arrow. It's hard to tell, but this little line is now highlighted. If I press delete, it'll delete the object there too. So either way, the eraser is pretty efficient, but you could use the other form as well. Okay, so let's start coloring this in. Oh, one thing you can tell is that my bevel isn't working, right? I need an extra little line that comes down here. Here's kind of a neat thing too. Let's say you want a line, but you don't want it to be, you don't want it to look like a line. You just want it to create a fill for live paint, so it can paint into this area. You can create a stroke without, you can draw a line without a stroke, pardon me. I'll just draw this down, and maybe I'll draw something down here. Close this over here. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of creating some invisible lines so that live paint will have something to work with. You'll see here in a second what I'm up to. Sometimes it works better in outline mode. I just press Command Y to see where my outlines are. Alright, and then again, same technique. Command A, Object, Live Paint, Merge. Okay, let's start painting. So I'm going to get out the live paint bucket. Open the color palette here. First color I'm going to make is kind of a mid-tone, kind of on the yellow side, but I need to add a little color to it. It shouldn't be so saturated. Take out the saturation. Sometimes the options, when you're mixing in CMYK, it can be kind of confusing. I like to mix color in HSB. Hue is the rainbow, S stands for saturation, and then B is brightness. To me, that seems a lot easier to understand. So I can desaturate the color a little bit, and a little bit more. Okay, I drop that in, and live paint automatically fills in this space. Now, of course, we could come in and clean up, put in more of these colors. But now I want to come over and I want to do the sides. So the side in this is actually a little bit darker, and it has just a little bit more blue in it. Come over here. And see, this is an area where I need to kind of clean that up so it joins differently. There we go. Command A. All right. Got to pick up this color. To pick up a color, just hold down Option or Alt. There we go. You can kind of see how it works. So I'm trying to get darker mid-tone. The shoulder area is a highlight. So now, we're going to open this up a bit. Actually, I think I'm going to sample from the yellow side. Open up the highlight a little bit, get just a little bit more saturation in there. And now I can drop into the shoulder area. Let's do the caps, starting with black. Let's get this, And even though it's black, well, let's do the darkest part. Boom. Just vary it a little bit. Then it gets more highlighted on either side. Oops. See, I missed a spot, so it wants to warn me about that. And highlight it a bit more. Let me close up that side. There we go, and we close this one just a little bit too. Again, Command A, Object, Live Paint, Make. Whoops, I want to undo that. Oh, it automatically merged. I was afraid that when I chose Make, it wouldn't allow it, but it automatically merged that out. So that's lucky. I was looking for Merge, but it chose Make instead. There we go. Now it's going to be a little, looks like it, well, there's two things happening here. There's kind of a bevel along the top of the cap. You kind of have to decide how much of this you really want to carry through, depending on the style you're going for. And the bevel's got more of a highlight. Oops. So let's pick that color up and use it here. And then the top part is a little darker. There you go. You can kind of see where this is going. This edge is a little in shadow, and you can tell it's opened up too much, so I'm going to come in and close that down. Might as well close some of these others as well. You can see that my perspective on this part is kind of screwy. So you just kind of work at it. And let's come in, take this highlight, yeah, carried it all the way over. Now let's fill in the bottom here. These are kind of light colors. It's a little darker on the edge. And then it lightens up a little bit. And again, we could come through here and clean it more. Let's do a glove or a boot or something, because I think there's some extra tricks I want to show you. So first of all, let's do this. Actually, let's do this hand. This is more fun. I think I did a better job drawing it too. Actually, let's get that darker color. I'm going to zoom in. Yeah, so you can see there's some places where Live Paint didn't want to go. Close these guys up a bit. Command A, Live Paint, merge. Okay. Oops. Okay. So we've got this glove in here. Now, in the original, let me show that to you guys again. You can kind of see the glove has this clear, translucent property to the plastic, and that's going to be showing up in kind of this glossy reflection. So instead of having it be kind of matte like it's doing right now, we want it to have kind of a glossy look instead. So to do that, I'm actually going to kind of leave live paint here. In fact, I might title this layer live paint. Just double clicked on it, by the way. Make a new layer, and in my new layer, I'm going to lock the live paint layer. I'm going to just put in those highlights. And to do that, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way in Illustrator. I have my pencil out. I'm just going to kind of come in and draw some quick, easy highlights. And let's see here. I'm going to sample the color and then just highlight it. I think we want it a little brighter. Good. I'm going to just do that for a number of these guys. And kind of just drop those in. Don't be afraid to let your image have some strong pop to it. A lot of people want to have perfect shading all the time and these perfect transitions from one thing to another. Well, in reality, we don't notice the perfect transitions. What we notice are strong little pops. So don't be afraid to let that just kind of take its course. I'm going to swing this around, pop it, and make it just a little darker. And then I'm going to move this behind, so Command X, cut this, Command B, and do maybe a couple of those around here. Again, Command X, click on the object I want it behind, Command B. So what I'm kind of creating is this posterization effect. And finally, top of the thumb. If I zip out, see how that gets some volume to it? Looks like it's three-dimensional. So anyway, you could continue on this way, but I think that that's the key with something like this, is to get a sketch in there. It's all right if it's rough. Sometimes that's what you want to be going for, is something rough. You know, in another movie, I'm going to go through kind of how to create a clean, pristine looking Illustrator drawing too. Those obviously have their especially commercial potential, but for just knocking out a concept and getting something painted or having something look cartoony, live paint, the pencil tool and a Wacom tablet get you going. Let me know if you have any questions.